Hello, my name is Robin Vincent and welcome to this Surface session where today we're talking about the Surface Book. Here it is, the Surface Book. Microsoft have lent me one. That's an awesome thing. Now I know that they've been out about a year and so we kind of already know everything there is to know about Surface Books, except we do not know how well they run audio software and hardware. And that's what I want to find out. So for the rest of the day, or probably the rest of the week, I'm going to be installing shed loads of music software on here and to start recording music, composing music, getting music in and out of the Surface Book and the Surface Pro 4, because they both need to be rigorously tested. And hopefully we'll be able to come up with an answer to that question of, will it be any good for my music making? That's the question we want to know. So, you know, it's a laptop. People like laptops. I'm not a particular fan of laptops, but many people are. And the Surface Book works just like a high-class, professional, high-end, expensive, shiny, metally, lovely laptop. So what possible information can I give you that's not already out there? I don't know. I mean, I can tell you that Windows Hello actually works on it. I couldn't get it to work on these other machines, and I haven't tried it since. But that's one of those things which seems to have improved, and it seems to work perfectly. I really like that. The screen is that little bit bigger than the Surface Pro 4, just for a comparison. Let me sit that on there. Don't know, do you see how much larger that is? Can you see? I don't know whether you can see. Anyway, it's that little bit bigger. It's got a slightly higher resolution, which is going to be interesting in terms of scalability. How is that going to pan out when we have some of these terribly non-touchy bits of software that don't scale properly? I don't know. We'll look into that. Why don't we test the USB 3 Wi-Fi thing? Yeah, I can do that. Now, this is kind of interesting because this is so sleek and slender and gorgeous, the USB ports don't always work. I mean, I've got this big fat USB thumb drive here, which has never occurred to me that it was uncommonly fat, and it's not going to fit without me doing this. So I'm going to have to pull this up and then plug that in, and then I'm going to have to rest this on something like that so that it doesned bend the port. So that's silly. So yeah, that's plugged in fine. However, the Wi-Fi is completely unfazed by this, whereas when I plug it in on the Surface Pro 4, it kills the Wi-Fi. So that's something they've either fixed or is different in some fashion. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's not a USB 3 port. No, it is a USB 3 port. So that's one thing then. So if you're plugging in something into the USB port, you've got to just make sure that it's thin enough not to interfere with the bass. So maybe we need to check out some of our other dongles to make sure they all fit. I mean, these, I've got Cubase iLock propeller heads ones, and they are all fairly small. The Cubase one actually looks the fattest, and as you can see, it interrupts there. It can't actually plug in, not without angling it down, and then I'm going to have to lift it up like so. So if I put that back down, it's going to push up on the dongle here and it's going to break it. It's going to break something. So that's not very good. Let me try with the iLock. Okay, the iLock one is just about thin enough. I can see that when I set it back down, it bends it a tiny bit, but it's not too bad. The propeller heads one, that one seems okay. Now, of course, there is a new iLock that's just come out, the iLock 3, which looks like thinner and more wonderful again, maybe for exactly this sort of reason. But see, these are things that no one else is going to tell you. No one else is going to tell you that. Only I'm going to tell you that your iLock is not going to properly go into the Surface Book, that your Cubase dongle is not going to properly go into the Surface Book. Where else do you get this sort of high-class information from? So what else do we want to know? Well, DPC latency, that's one of those things. I've got latency monitor installed here. It's the only thing I've installed on this system so far, pretty much. If we run that, it says the system appears to be suitable for handling real-time audio and other tasks without dropouts. So that's awesome. I can also run it on here, my Surface Pro 4, just for a comparison. And actually the Surface Pro 4 looks better than the Surface Book. However, I have not tweaked this system at all. At the moment, the CPU is wanging about all over the place, whereas this is a fully tweaked system where it's a lot more stable, and so is going to give me a better result on this. Now, this has now popped into the red and says that it may cause clicks, pops, and dropouts, which is not a good thing. But I say again, I have not tweaked the Surface Book at all. But as we have found, and as we often find, and the whole reason why I do these sorts of videos is because out of the box, PC laptops, PC tablets, PC computers don't just work for music and audio production. They have to be wrangled into working. They have to be forced and tweaked and encouraged into working. Because when people build PCs, when Microsoft build these machines, they're not thinking about us. They're thinking about all their other millions and billions of users who have far more interesting things to do than make music. And so those are the people that they cater to, and things like DVC latency are unimportant for the vast majority of users. Things like plugging in a software dongle are unimportant to the vast majority of users. And so this is why I exist and am doing these sorts of things, to try to find ways around it and to get the best music making and audio production experience out of fabulous bits of hardware that just are not tailored for us. And never will be. We'll never find one that is. It's just not going to happen. So hopefully we will look at this again once I've tweaked it and once I've sorted a few things out, and hopefully it should improve. But for now, out of the box, it's not a particularly wonderful experience. Now let me show you the CPU and the cooling. So let's run CPU ID. Now, what we find on here that it's a Intel Core i7 Skylake, of course, a 6600U CPU running at 2.6 gigahertz. But of course, the actual core speed on here is floating all over the place. It goes at 800 megahertz. Then, you know, for no reason it pops up to, oh, it's gone up to 29 gigahertz, 2.9 gigahertz rather. Now it's back down to 800 megahertz. Now it's gone to 3.3. Struth, what is going on? We have no idea. It's just doing its own thing. Whereas over here on the Surface Pro 4, because I have tweaked and tamed this machine, it is running at a much more constant CPU speed. If we run the hardware monitor to check out the temperatures, they are both idling at around the same sort of temperature. So that's cool. I mean, I have heard the fans come on in the Surface Book and they are quite noticeable. And also this is an i7 processor, which means it's going to get hot. And the more that I use it and the more I demonstrate with it, we will run into heat and we will run into fans coming on and we may run into throttling. But these things are yet to be revealed and we will see how that goes. So the spec of this Surface Book then is, let's just bring up the system properties. This is a Core i7 6600 running at 2.6 gigahertz with a 2.8 gigahertz turbo speed and with 16 gigs of RAM. The Surface Pro 4 is an i5 with 8 gigs of RAM. So we're going to be able to have the opportunity to see some comparison as to whether the i7 is the better bet or the i5. I mean, my sort of personal assumption has been that the i5 runs cooler and so doesn't get into throttling problems as soon, or as quick rather, as the Core i7. But, you know, that's not really based on anything particularly scientific. It's just an assumption that I've made. So it will be interesting to run plugins and stuff on the Core i7 to see whether that's actually true, to see whether we do get a great deal more headroom with this, or whether it's going to hit a point and then clock down and ruin all of that extra performance. We don't know. That's what we're here to find out. That's what we're here to find out. So around about this time last year, I made a video about the new Surface Book and the Surface Pro 4 because they'd just been announced and released. And I gave some reasons why I prefer the Surface Pro 3 / Surface Pro 4 form factor over that of a clamshell laptop. And the main reason is to do with screen resistance, because with the whole Surface range, we are invited into this touch experience, into this hands-on, fingers on screen, fingerprints all over the place way of working. And on the Surface Pro 4, it's awesome. It resists. You tap away at here and it stays there and nothing bad happens. Why would anything bad happen? I don't know, but it's there. It's there. It's great. It's perfect. The kickstand works as steadying the whole screen so that you can work on it successfully. With the Surface Book, flipping aircraft over my head all the time, with the Surface Book, you don't have the same resistance. You have this wobble experience, which, you know, if you're touching windows and closing stuff, it's not the end of the world, but you have this wobble, which I don't like it. I don't like the wobble very much. Now, of course, we can transform the form factor into another way and have it down and have it flat and that kind of thing, which is fine. But you do also, when you do that, lose access to the keyboard. So to perhaps demonstrate this, I'm going to load up FL Studio Mobile. Now, FL Studio Mobile is a new version of their mobile app for Windows 10 and Android and other things as well. I think it runs on pretty much everything. But anyway, this is a real bona fide Windows 10 universal app. So it runs in Windows 10 without all that fussing around with weird installations or plug-in folders or messing around with audio interfaces. It runs on the inbuilt onboard audio. It's a music making piece of software and it looks pretty good. I mean, I've been playing with it for about 10 minutes, so I don't really know what I'm talking about, but it seems to work brilliantly as far as touch goes, moving things about, zooming in and out. We like all that kind of stuff over here. Of course, all demo songs from FL Studio are banging, and this is no exception. So this is using the onboard sound. It's just coming out of the onboard speakers at the moment. It sounds all right. It sounds like normal sort of laptop speakery things to me. But perhaps you can see that when I'm playing, the screen is wobbling like a crazy thing. Let's bring some drums up. So I can play drums, because I can play drums on a screen, no problem. You see what's happening there? Whereas if I was to do something similar on the Surface Pro 4, I don't have it installed on here, but just to mimic the same kind of action. It's flipping rock solid. Whereas here it's wanging about all over the place. What do I think about that? I don't know. Well, you can, of course, swap it around and lie it down. Well, you know, let's try that out. The detaching of the screen, of course, is one of those awesome Surface Book features. And what you do is hold down this button here, and then it goes, ta-da, ready to detach, and you can pull it off. Oh, like that. I can then turn it around, put it back on, slide it down over here. Okay, I just need to give it a little shake to reorientate it. Don't know where that other noise is coming from. I'm just vibrating the table, I think. So yeah, that can work. You've got it slapped down in this sort of form. That's fine. Yeah, that's all right. But I have now lost my keyboard, whereas I can put this as flat as I like and play on it, and the keyboard still exists. If I choose to, I can take it off, put it back on again, that kind of thing. So I can definitely see that there are some challenges to be met by the Surface Book. The touch elements is great, it's there, but the way it was designed for the Surface Pro 4, I think, is kind of like the ultimate form factor, but they've taken that same idea and put it into a laptop, and I don't think it quite, for me, works quite so well. However, it does still work, and that is all there. I mean, let's put it through some speakers. I've got some speakers here. If I find the headphone socket, ta-da! Okay. I mean, the FL Studio Mobile is using the onboard sound, which has notoriously got terrible latency. However, in this particular situation, they are using, I believe, the ultra low latency options that Microsoft have built into the audio stack, and that's working pretty well. It's kind of right on the edge of being perfectly playable. You know, I can bang out a beat, but it is a little bit draggy. It's so nearly there that I'm quite, to be honest, quite impressed with that. However, this is not the sort of music software that I'm going to be testing in the long run. I'm going to be using Pro Tools, Cubase, FL Studio, Studio One, Reason, Ableton, Bitwig, all that kind of stuff. And that's going to be using ASIO drivers, although I will be also looking at the onboard sound. But I've found if you want successful music production on the Surface Book or Surface Pro 4, you need to have a USB audio interface. That's just the way of things. Right, let's see if I can put this back round the other way. In fact, why don't I do that while it's playing, just to see how bad that gets. So let me set this playing. Turn it down a little bit. So I'm going to press detach. Now that's interesting. So I've detached it, it's still playing back. And I can still play it here. Set it back in place. And it's still working. Remarkable. I mean, the technology here is extraordinary that I can pull the computer off from half of itself. I mean, within the base, you've only really got the graphics, the extra discrete graphics and battery stuff, and of course the connection to the keyboard and the trackpad. But the fact that you can have that running and you can pull the thing off and it still kind of runs, I mean, you get that little glitch going on, but that's nothing compared to what you expect to happen during that. I mean, with the Surface Pro 4, you have the USB port built into the side here. So if you want to run it as a tablet, the Surface Pro 4 can plug USB directly into an extraordinary USB audio interface and do multi-channel audio in and out. With the Surface Book, there is no USB port on the screen at all. The USB ports are on the side, on the base. So as soon as I detach that, I've removed any possibility of using a USB audio interface. It can only run as a tablet with the onboard sound. That's it. Can't plug in a dongle, can't plug in a MIDI interface, can't get a keyboard into it. Nothing once it's detached. That can only happen when it's in the base. With the Surface Pro 4, it's a tablet all the time. So I can plug MIDI interfaces, MIDI controllers, my circuit, my base station keyboard, everything into it and use it as a tablet. Can't do that with the Surface Book. Those really, that along with the wobble, are the main differences between the two. However, you may be coming from a completely laptop environment. You might be a MacBook Pro owner who wants to delve into the world of the Surface Book because you've seen how touch can actually be a useful thing as opposed to something to be ignored. And if that's the case, then this is the perfect laptop for you because it provides everything that the MacBook Pro provided to you, even down to the fact that it's a gorgeous piece of equipment. Plus, you get the added benefit of touch on your projects, on your work, on your music, which, as I've shown in numerous videos, and as I will continue to show, is actually an awesome thing. Once you start getting the pen involved and your fingers involved, there's a lot of creative opportunity to work on music and to develop audio production that's different to using a mouse and keyboard. And you can still use a mouse and keyboard. You know, it's not one or the other. Like with the iPad, you're thrown into a touch environment that you cannot get out of, and it is just all touch. Whereas with something like the Surface Book, Surface Pro 4, you have touch, you have pen, you have mouse and keyboard, all of that working together or working in whatever way you want it to work. And that's why it's so versatile. That's why it's so awesome. So there you are. There's some reasons why the Surface Book is awesome and some reasons why I don't like it so much as my Surface Pro 4. However, I'm now going to spend a lot of time running software on it, plugging in things like my circuit, plugging in keyboards, plugging in the K-Mix, the Moog thing over here. Everything's going to be going in here to see how well it performs with Moog's production. The test, if you haven't seen it, an episode or two ago I did a Pro Tools test on the Surface Pro 4. Now Pro Tools has previously not been working at all well. I mean, it's been completely useless on the Surface Pro 4, whereas I ran a test and it seemed to work completely fine. So I think what's going on here is that the Surface technology in the Surface Pro 4 and hopefully in the Surface Book has matured, because we are 9 months to a year down the line from when it first got released, and there have been a shed load of updates since. There have been the Windows Anniversary update, and there's been a whole stack of firmware updates to this thing as well. So I have, at this moment, every confidence that this is going to be an awesome music making machine. Within the limitations of its processing and what it needs to be in order to be the sort of laptop that it is. It's never going to be a desktop power machine, but that's not what we're here for. We're here for a mobile, powerful enough music making and performance environment. And that's what we're going to look at. So yeah, I think I've gone on enough. I think I've rabbited on plenty about this fella. So I'm going to get stuck in to the Surface Book, install a whole load of software, see how everything goes in and out, and just see how that all pans out. I'm feeling pretty good about it. It's just going to take up a load of time. So please give me a chance to get stuck in, and I will get to your piece of software, I'm sure, soon. And also, if you're coming to this for the first time, I've been making videos for the past year all about the Surface Pro 4 running different bits of software. And in particular, I did this huge test where I showed which bits of software worked and which ones didn't. And there were some that did and some that didn't. And now what I'm trying to do is to retest that, because I believe that the improvements that they've made to the Surface Pro 4 through firmware updates and the improvements they've made to Windows 10 is actually going to have quite a large impact on the sort of software we can run and the music making that we can do. And so far, so good. It's all been positive. So stay tuned and see what happens. And in the meantime, go make some tunes.